How's it going, everyone? We are here to review some Week 11 kicker takes. Denny obviously writes the article for us every week. How's it going, Denny?
Not too bad. Week 10 was not horrible, and I think we have at least two or three really good options in Week 11.
Yes, and on FanDuel, there's some weeks where you just get panicked
Hmm.
over kicker and defense, and you just go. I mean, there was a few weeks there where I was just like, wow, I don't really know what to do.
Hmm.
But this week feels a little better. Um, in just to give a little teaser from the article, you wrote a little bit about Blair Walsh here. Obviously, got released this week. Do you have any quick thoughts there?
I mean, like I said in the piece this week on Daily Fantasy Cafe, it was mamas don't raise your babies to be kickers because man, what an existence that is to to be so good for a number of years, as he was. In 2012, he was so good that people freaked out in 2013 and were drafting him in like the eighth or ninth or 10th round in their fantasy drafts. So
Mhm.
he went from that to being just unceremoniously axed. But like we were talking before the show, you miss a big kick like he did against Seattle last year in the playoffs, and sometimes there's no coming back.
Yeah, it certainly seems like that's what happened. And I mean, we see this in sports a lot. You know, guys, these guys are all incredible at their jobs. So the slightest mental handicap and you're done. Like there's guys gunning for your job. So I'll be interested what they do going forward. But yeah, this is rough week for Blair Walsh, that's for sure.
Absolutely. I think with kickers it's different. We've seen other positions get into mental funks as well.
Mhm.
But there's something about having your position based on like physicality that maybe makes it easier to overcome the mental aspect. But with kickers, man, it's just it's like all between the ears, and you can't just. It seems like, and I'm speaking as a kicker expert, obviously. It seems like you can't power through it just by force of will, force of
Yeah.
physical will. It's like in golf. You can't stand over your golf ball when you're in a funk and think I'm just gonna hit the crap out of this ball and it's gonna be fine. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and I do think, them moving the extra point back has absolutely affected kicker psychology. Like I'm there's a whole class that can probably be taught about those 10 yards.
Absolutely, yeah.
Getting into this week, we're gonna look at the top play first. Obviously, Adam Vinatieri against the Titans. I think we're all pretty excited about the fantasy matchups in this game. What are you looking at with Vinatieri?
Yeah, so Vinatieri is not the highest price kicker on the main slate, but he's close. He's $100 cheaper than the top price kicker, which is actually Dan Bailey. But the Titans allow 2.2 field goal tries per game, which is only 9 teams are allowing more fantasy production to kickers than the Titans. And we've seen the Colts have a lot of success in driving the ball inside the red zone. As you know, if you were unlucky to play against Vinatieri on the 2 or 3 weeks where he went nuclear this season. So this game has a really nice Vegas total, which is something we look at. The Titans are not too good against the pass. I mean, they're not awful. They're sort of mid range. And I really would be quite surprised if Vinatieri didn't have 2 or 3 cracks at a field goal this week.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, you don't need to force them in, but if it works, if you got that extra 200-300,
Yeah.
certainly viable. Getting into the mid range here, you highlighted Matt Prater as a guy probably a lot of people are going to be on just because of the Lions and Jaguars matchup. Is that the chalk for good reason or?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And it's funny. I think it was on NFL.com. I read yesterday that Prater was the number one waiver wire claim on NFL.com.
Wow.
this
Well,
week.
there you go.
And so, yeah, people. So let's. This is no secret, okay? Like your Prater love, my Prater love is no secret here. The Jaguars give up more fantasy production to kickers than anybody. It's a little different. It's they're not being they're not being sliced and diced through the air so much, but they are giving up a ton of total yards. And teams are giving their kickers a lot of opportunity against Jacksonville pretty consistently. Last week was the first time since week 2 that a kicker has not notched double digits fantasy points against the Jags. Now, that was a guy we talked about, Nick Novak for Houston. Novak missed 2 field goals in that
Oh,
game.
crushing. Yeah.
Yeah, totally devastating. And that's why I start off the show by saying it wasn't horrible, because what we're looking for is opportunity. We got the opportunity.
Mhm.
It didn't come to fruition, but he still scored 8 points, which is not hateful. He was on track to score, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 points. So Prater is going to have very high ownership this week at 4,600, right above the minimum. Just know that going in, you're not pulling a fast one on anyone playing Prater. He's going to be played everywhere for good reason. So just remember that when you're building lineups.
Yeah, and I'd imagine if he's the number one waiver claim on NFL.com, then these people, that are grinding out DFS all week are probably going to be on him too. Dustin Hopkins was the other guy you mentioned in the mid range, against the Packers. Should be a pretty high scoring game, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, neither of these defenses look great, and the offenses are pretty functional. So let's see, the Vegas pegs this as the third highest total of the week,
Mm-hmm.
Which is nice. Green Bay has allowed 14 field goal attempts over the past 6 weeks, which is a lot. I just counted that up by hand. I don't know how that compares to all other teams, but I suspect it's pretty high. So Hopkins has become a pretty reliable source of fantasy points, which is why he's priced at 4,800 this week. It's a little bit uncomfortable at 48. I probably go Prater. But I think Hopkins, if you have a couple of hundred extra dollars at the end of the day, I think that he will have low ownership. And I think that his ceiling this week is as high as anybody. So I think maybe he's best used in tournament games.
Yeah, I just think this Redskins offense is really field goal friendly right now, is how I'd
Yeah.
describe it, because they don't really have a running
No.
game. Their receiving options are good. Like, I like Jordan Reed, but overall, I mean, Cousins hasn't been great in the red zone. So,
Yeah.
I think he's a good play.
Yeah, and just a quick note: Hopkins has the third most field goal attempts on the season. So he's, like you said, he really is getting a lot of opportunity.
Yep. Low priced. So getting the other end of this Titans Colts game. Ryan Succop at 4,500. Again, a lot of good things pointing in the direction of this game.
Yeah, I mean, this game seems like a very stackable game, right? Just kind of throw guys in there everywhere. And Succop, I think, is one of them. It's such a weird name to say, isn't it?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Suck it
He's
up
got a
and
terrible name.
suck it up and play Succop this week. That's my brand. So only 3 kickers this season have failed to eclipse 10 points, 10 fantasy points against the Colts. That's pretty consistent as far as kicker production goes. And Succop, along as the Titans offense has lit the world on fire in recent weeks, has really produced at fairly high levels. So while I think that Hopkins is still the ceiling play, I think Succop is a really solid minimum priced floor play for week 11.
Yeah, and one quick note, you could have liked DeMarco Murray before the season. You could have liked Marcus Mariota before the season. But man, I did not see this coming. Like,
No.
the Titans onslaught.
You know what? I think we have to say rest in peace to all the jokes about exotic Smash Mouth.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Rest in peace. They're dead.
Who would have thunk the Titans would be destroying, the narratives this
I,
year?
I know. I mean, I'm pretty old, and I am old enough to remember when Derrick Henry was was the running back to
Oh,
this year.
I fell for that one, man. DeMarco Murray, this guy's something else.
Yeah.
So any other kicker related or worldly related topics you want to throw out there before we head out?
Well, worldly, yes, but I'll leave that for another podcast. So I don't want to light this podcast, light this show on fire. But no, that's it. Oh, I want to say Thursday night kickers, really good for both of them. Carolina allows a lot of kicker opportunity. New Orleans does. I would rather have Gano, but I think Lutz is also a really good play just for people who are joining Thursday games or have redraft questions. I think we have the potential to see quite a few kicker points tonight. Let us pray.
Yeah, there you go. And, if you do play these Thursday night slates, if you got, 12, 13 from your kicker going into Sunday, you're feeling pretty good.
Oh, man. Whew, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. As always, if you like these videos, give us a like and subscribe. If you want to check out Denny's article, head over to dailyfantasycafe.com. If you want to follow him on Twitter, it's at cdcarter13. And, as always, good luck, and we will see you guys next week.